on the clock. Pecan, 2 seconds. Pecan for the lead. Got it! He got the record at the buzzer! The Briggs for three. Buried! Gallagher pulls up. Gallagher rims it out to Shields! Slams it down! Cooley up ahead. Dombrowski, the freshman, off the window and one. Let's go back to Evans, corner three, got it! There's Rowe with the exclamation point! As Dunny slams it down! Far side, Dawson unloads, knocks it home, Jenna Dawson! By Teslavich, Epps puts it on the floor. Bryce looks to drive in, Epps floats it up, got it! He got it! There's 1,000 for Bryce Epps!
Happy holidays and welcome in to episode number 72 of the Valley Sports Guys podcast here from his place, Coffee Community and more in Monessen. I'm Jose Negron. To my left, to your right is Alex Lyons and Nick Hicksonball. Happy holidays to everybody. Thank you for joining us here for episode 72 of the Valley Sports Guys podcast. Last episode of 2022 as we will be back the first Wednesday of 2023. And guys, it's been a good year here for the VSG podcast.
It's been a busy year, but a good one.
It's been a good year, yeah.
I can't hear you guys in my thing.
Oh, man.
Oh.
You got the Jeremy issues today.
Yeah, I do got there we go. All right. Yep. I hear it.
You good?
Maybe?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
You good?
Yep. We're good.
All right, moving on.
All right, moving on. And a lot to discuss here. We didn't have an episode last week, so we're kind of continuing in. Big shout out to Delana Davis, by the way. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, Delana. Thank you for all your support. We appreciate it. We have some champions here in the Valley that we haven't really talked about on the podcast. We've obviously had a ton of coverage of Belle Vernon area's WPIAL and state championship run in the newspaper. We were able to have a couple photo pages. They just had a parade on Saturday through North Belle Vernon, but we haven't been able to talk about it much on the podcast. But a 9-8 win over Newman Goretti in the state championship game for the Belle Vernon area Leopards, their first state championship in program history, and probably one of the best plays in state championship history to finish it off. One last stand for the Belle Vernon defense that has been so crucial all season long. They're able to force a late turnover, and they're able to get that first state title.
Yeah, absolutely huge. And, one thing I go back and look to with Belle Vernon, and I think it's something that probably most people don't look at. Coach Humbert deliberately gave himself a hard non-section schedule to put himself in moments for games like this, a close game against McKeesport, Penn Trafford, ones you lost, of course. But go back to a game they won in their first game of the year against Laurel Highlands. First and goal from the 1-yard line with Rodney Gallagher. They stuffed them 4 straight times. That defense, multiple times this year, has been in situations backed up against their own goal line. And they've continuously found ways to get stops, and that's such a good thing that it's not a new trick for them. They've done it throughout the course of the year, and it's because they were battle-tested throughout the year against good competition. And, you hate to see what happens to Willie Schwer in that game. Wish the best for him in his recovery, but their defense, absolutely like it was all year, lethal.
Yeah, I think it really goes back to 4 words in particular that I really saw in Belle Vernon's defense all season long: bend and don't break. There were times in that 4-game gauntlet where, obviously Colin Green from Penn Trafford had a great game. I think over 130 rushing yards. He's gigantic. He's, 6'3". A big body at quarterback, a defensive line recruit for college. So you kind of expect that he's going to be capable of, just running over opposing defenses. And, Belle Vernon allowed a lot of yardage in that loss, but they were still in that game. That's probably a game that, they should have won. And I think, everybody would agree with that. Matt Humbert, said, we should have won that game. He took accountability for that loss. But that 4-game stretch is what allowed them to get to where they were, to be ready for, the WPIAL title run, to be ready for the state title run. And that state title run was not an easy one. Those wins that they had to get in the semifinals and championship game, those were very, very close wins. So, they were battle tested because of that, 4-game span. All very, very close games. The ones that they lost, and then I think the LH one was a little more lopsided than the TJ one, but. Kudos to Bell Vernon, that coaching staff, Matt Humbert, for getting that win. I know it meant a lot to them. It was great to see the turnout on Saturday, for the parade. I was there on Broad Avenue getting a couple videos. We were able to go down to the park in North Bell Vernon and see just how many people were there to support. So, it was great to see, Bell Vernon get that championship win and be able to reap the benefits of the hard work they've had all year.
They should have let you ride on the fire truck, too.
We thought about that. We kind of missed a chance to get our MVI sports float or something. We could have just been driving in my car or something like that. Or Jeremy's Jeep. We could have just driven in Jeremy's Jeep, but maybe next time. This might not be the last state championship.
Yeah,
I think they're the favorites.
I have a
forward.
good feeling that's not going to be the last one.
Yeah, I think we could very well see Bell Vernon win back-to-back. What do you think?
I would be a little surprised maybe if they don't. They got a lot coming back, a lot of talent left.
If I was a betting man, I'd place a bet.
I'd probably say that they're probably the favorites in 3A, not just in the WPIL, but in the state. But, yeah, just a phenomenal run. Phenomenal to see that type of thing here in the Valley. We got to see Thomas Jefferson. I remember in 2019 when they went undefeated, won the WPIAL championship, won the state title. Really convincing wins, too. That's still the best team that I have seen in my time here at the paper is that 2019 TJ team. They're just unbelievable. But we got to see that back-to-back years, 2019 and 20, where they won WPIAL and state gold. Last year we saw Sarah Catholic win a WPIAL title and go play for a state title. They fell short, but still a great run for them. So we've been pretty fortunate here in the Valley to be able to see some really good football teams go make some deep runs.
Oh, absolutely. And, we talk about titles. It might not be the last title for Bell Vernon this year.
Yeah.
Their basketball team now with all those guys back on the floor, oh, boy.
That's a good segue, Alex.
They are something, I will tell you that last night. And, Laurel Highlands moving down. They barely beat Thomas Jefferson last night. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, TJ has some great players with Evan Berger and Noah Prosser when he gets going, but they're not necessarily a consistent team. And they struggled against McKeesport, that being Thomas Jefferson. Well, Bell Vernon last night with that full accompaniment of players, fully locked and loaded last night, and they are good.
And we see how much of an impact. The big thing I think everybody was wondering is, okay, so you have Quentin Martin, who's one of the best players in the WPIAL football-wise and basketball-wise. You have Alonzo Wade, who is going to be a huge player for them in his sophomore season. And then you have Zion Moore come into the mix, and first game with all of these guys puts up 36.
Oh, he was so good last night. I think he was around 6-7 rebounds as well. He was all over the floor, and you wonder how is he going to fit in with the Coach Salvino offense. He fits in pretty well when you add all the pieces. Martin 19 points, but he had 15 rebounds last night.
Yep.
No one could guard Quentin underneath, and you have 3-6-3 guys out on the floor for McKeesport the majority of the game, and they were struggling with Quentin. And, then you look, Alonzo added 18. You almost had 3 guys over 20 points. One more bucket for Wade, one more bucket for Martin. They both would have been over the 20-point plateau. And I think another thing to look at, how much better Trevor Kovacs looked last night than he has looked all season long.
Well-deserved start and played really, really well.
Yeah. And, he was all over the court. He added 8 points in. When you look at that, he can do a lot for you when he doesn't have to be the guy. And then, obviously, I think Curdy and Diabre are going to play huge roles. We saw Diabre hit a 3/4 court shot that Bell Vernon wanted to argue it, but there's no argument. It was 0.2 seconds on the clock. Technically, in all legality, you have to have 0.3 to get a shot.
I can understand wanting that one, especially since it was a tie game going into halftime, correct?
Well, that was the end of the third.
Oh, that was the end of the third.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, I can understand
but
that.
Still,
you want that to count. Come on.
It fired everybody up
right.
Still. I'll tell you, that was cool for Diabre. But those two are going to be really good, it looks like.
Yeah, and
Curdy's got that size, skill.
Right. And you look at some of the guys who got some playing time before. I'm sure that there's going to be some talent there that Coach Coach Salvino will utilize. You got Braden Locks. You got Evan Polott. I know he's coming off, the injury from football. And, talking to his dad at the parade on Saturday, I know he only played, limited snaps in the state championship game. But, he should be good to go the rest of the season, too.
Right now it's the calf just so tight on him. I was talking to Mark last night. And, he
take some time.
He wants to go, but it's just making sure he stays loose enough after coming off an injury like that.
Right. And, he's going to, as soon as he can get healthy and be 100%, he's going to make an impact in this lineup. I mean, there's a lot of depth here. And I think when you look at LH, obviously it all goes around Keandre DeShields, who we got to, give a shout out to Keandre, a MVI SBL guy who got his 1,000th point last night in LH's win over Thomas Jefferson. But, it always runs through him and Rodney Gallagher. But then I got to see them against McKeesport a couple weeks ago, and it was really some of the other guys who were getting going that were scoring, 9, 8 points, things like that, just providing some depth. And if LH can do that, they're obviously going to be one of the top teams in 4A. But when it comes to depth, I think Bell Vernon kind of has the edge, especially if you can get Diabre Lightfoot and Curdy Wade, up to speed. I mean, it's going to take some time for them to fully get, acclimated to playing at the high school level. Yeah. It's not going to be a one night thing. There's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some good times. You just kind of roll through that. But they're not going to be expected to be the guys right away. They have to just provide depth around the guys that are the top guys like Zion, like Quentin, like Alonzo.
I mean, Alonzo didn't start starting till almost the start of the playoffs last year.
Quentin, when he was a freshman, didn't start starting until midway through the season. I mean, he was basically the sixth man coming off the bench, and I think that was a really good thing for Joe Salvino to do. And I mean, I'm not going to never question Joe Salvino.
702 wins.
He knows what he is doing, and that was one of the, I think, a good thing for him was, I'm going to ease Quentin into this. I know how good he is, but I'm going to ease him into this. He doesn't have to be the guy right away. Obviously had some help with guys like Devin Whitlock and Daniel Gordon over the last couple years. So he didn't have to kind of be the guy right away. Now he pretty much is the guy, but he also has guys like Zion Moore and Alonzo Wade who on any given night are capable of being that leading scorer.
And I think a big thing, we talk about the late start for Quentin. He grew so much that freshman year that, when you first see him, it's like, okay, he's probably going to be a guard outside. But now it's like, no, he's one of the best bigs in the WPIO just because his raw strength and athleticism. And there's very few teams that have the athleticism and size that Bell Vernon can put out. I mean, Alonzo and Quentin both 6'3", but they can outrun almost anybody on the floor.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Zion, I mean, he has a different motor going this year. We saw how great of shape he got into this summer compared to his freshman year. And, I mean, it is benefiting him greatly on the floor for Bell Vernon. But, you talk about that depth, for Laurel Highlands, who's going to be a big part of this loaded section. And it seems like some of the other big teams from 4A are down. Quaker Valley a little bit from last year. Montour, who beat Bell Vernon last year, a little down. But no more Brandon Davis, who's expected to be back this year, transferring up to a prep school in Erie, if I'm not mistaken. And then, Jaden Pratt graduated. We know how athletic and talented he was. So you're going to look at those other guys, but are they the same caliber of your third and fourth option on Bell Vernon? Maybe not. And, then you add a team like Uniontown with Calvin Winfrey III, Bakari Wallace. I know I'm forgetting a couple other guys there, but that is
Notorious
Grooms. That team is fantastic as well. And, I mean, you look at those three and then, Elizabeth Ford's in there still.
Once they get up to, get healthy, I mean, they're going to probably be a playoff team too. So, yeah, I mean, it's – And the thing I look at, too, is, LH loses, two key components in Jaden Pratt and Brandon Davis. And then Bell Vernon loses two key components in Devin Whitlock and Daniel Gordon. But then they also get a huge one in Zion Moore. So, Bell Vernon was able to kind of, fill the void a little bit easier. And especially with some of the other guys that they have and some of the freshmen they have coming in this year than LH did in replacing, Brandon Davis and Jaden Pratt. So it remains to be seen. I mean, we're going to see two matchups between these teams this year instead of one last year. I know last year was phenomenal. We were able to be there up at Laurel Highlands for that non-section class. Yeah, in the corner of the stands. And, it was standing room only there. And it was such a big non-section game, probably one of the top non-section games of the season. And, Bell Vernon hung with them. So we'll see. It remains to be seen who's going to take that top spot. But I think anybody can kind of agree that, maybe those are the top 2 teams, but Uniontown is right there as well, like you mentioned. So, a very, very tough section, and you can't count Uniontown out. As much as everybody would say LH and Bell Vernon are the top 2 teams, Uniontown is right there too. So it's going to be very interesting to see the dynamic of this section once section play starts getting going. So,
yeah, I mean, and on the other end of last night's game, that Tigers team are so talented. They just cannot figure it out.
It's one of those things where, Troy Blackwell said it at the beginning of the season, our biggest key is going to be how we play defense. We know we can. He even said it. He said it doesn't matter if we score 70 per game, which they scored 70 plus last night, if we can't defend. If we allow 80 points per game and only score 70, there's no point. Like it doesn't matter.
98 last night.
And that's the thing. So far we've seen a lot from Shane McGraw. I really like what Shane McGraw has done early on, and Coach Blackwell even said it, prior to the season. He's worked so hard over the offseason to get himself into a position where he can be what he is right now. He's an all-conference football player coming in to the basketball season. He carried the way last night for the Tigers, and Dunny was able to, I think, have 11 as well. So those two.
He was in foul trouble, and that was nothing.
And that's huge.
It was an unfortunate. There were some rough calls against Dunny last night. I would say there was about 2 or 3 that I would have definitely not considered a foul from my standpoint.
And obviously McKeesport hung around for one half. And that was probably an encouraging half of play for Coach Blackwell and the Tigers, but they need to figure things out, I think, on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's the biggest key.
And they've had that big lapse in every game this year. That's been the difference for that Tigers team. You look at, they should have beat Thomas Jefferson. No ands, ifs, or doubts, in my opinion. But Evan Berger did Evan Berger type things, but McKeesport got a little lackadaisical, some soft passes, and Berger, he's tenacious, he's going to take advantage. They should have beat TJ.
Right.
They lost. They played awful in the first half against Woodland Hills and came back to a chance to win. You played half decent in the first half, you beat Woodland Hills.
Right.
And then for Bell Vernon, they play great in the first half, and then they get absolutely blown out. I think it was 50-25 in the second half, scoring in favor of Bell Vernon, if I'm not mistaken. They haven't put a complete game of basketball together. And look at South. They haven't led for at least 2 games.
Yeah.
Because they were tied with SA once, and they were tied with Bell Vernon a few times. But the only tie in the SA game actually came midway through, because look what happened in that game. They had 2 technicals in pregame and were down 6-0 5 seconds into the game. 4-0 before time ticked off the clock.
Right.
And you got to put a complete game of basketball together if you want to be successful. And the team they lost to on Friday, SA, they've been successful, 5-0 again to start the year.
Yeah, and going back to the McKeesport point, just want to mention one last thing before we move on. But that is a good point, because even against Laurel Highlands, it was the opposite of what they saw against Woodland Hills a couple days after that loss. They got out to a tough start, and then they started picking things up, almost came back and rallied for that win. And then LH, it was the complete opposite. They got off to a good start. Coach Blackwell was really happy with how they played in the first half, and then in the second half they kind of had those lapses. Gallagher and DeShield started to get going even more than they did in the first half, and then it was kind of everything just kind of spiraled from there.
A lot of what we saw last night for them as well.
Right.
But Zion scored 36 yesterday. Bryce Epps 35 on Friday, and that was a couple big replacements needed there in South Allegheny from that semifinal run, moving up to 4A. But AOK so far with a 5-0 start for the Gladiators, and Cameron Epps has been a much-needed added 3-point presence on the outside. We knew how good Cam was going to be and how good he had the potential to be. And when you lose Kirkwood and Hines, having Cameron Epps step up in a huge way. And I'm still looking – I think Justin Beatty's going to have a great year averaging double digits, and he hasn't got it going yet. And South Allegheny still cruising.
Right, and I think that's good for SA too. And I will never doubt Tony DeCenzo and his coaching staff. They're always going to have that team ready, no matter who the opponent is. But yeah, I mean, this is a really talented group, and when you have a guy like Bryce Epps leading the way, I mean, he's a 4-year starter. He's played in big games. He knows how to lead a team. It was the same last year. I mean, he was only a junior, but he was the leader of this team. Cam Epps really benefited a lot from the experience I think he got last year. You look at the big steps Michael Michalski has taken, since the beginning of last season, taking on a bigger role as a starter. Justin Beatty, I think, is very capable of taking that next step and being.
We saw it this summer.
Right. We saw it this summer. He's very capable of taking that next step and being a key starter. He's gained valuable experience over the last couple of years. So this is an SA team that is talented. There's no doubt about that. I'm interested in seeing how they do once they get into section play. It's going to be a very different animal than it was down in 3A. But, if there's any team that you really can't bet against and can kind of trust that, they can maybe shock some people, I think it's South Allegheny.
And I think a great thing, going back to the McKeesport team, it showed them a test of what 4A would be, even though McKeesport's a 5A team. But it's the speed and the athleticism that 4A, 5A classification has. And, last year we became very accustomed, and actually probably what was the downfall of SA in the district playoffs when they kind of had the big lead versus Avonworth, held it around, and ended up blowing that one. But they've shown that they can play at that pace. They were running the floor, controlling the speed, and then, when they got up by 17, 15 points against McKeesport, they went back to their cycling, and they've changed it, though. And the adjustments with the competition's been great for them because, we would see in between the volleyball line and half-court line, it'd be a lot of catch being played with Bryce Epps and somebody else. But this time it was running basically a weave drill through the entire offensive zone, just playing big game of keep away for a minute 30 against McKeesport, that they were still slowing the pace down to their play, but they were still finding ways to keep the ball out of their opponent's hands.
Yeah, it's nice to see them adapt, to that type of thing and be able to, say, hey, we can play a different brand of basketball because we're probably going to need to when we get into section play. These teams are a lot faster than what they're probably, had played last year in 3A. It's just a different animal, I feel like, with the section that they're in and the talent that's there. It's going to be interesting to see how they adapt as the season goes on. But I'm always excited to see what they can do over at SA. But we also got to mention there's a new animal in 2A that is back after a 1-win season. The Clairton Bears are 4-1, guys. 2-0 in section play. They scored 80 points last night against Riverview. 80-71 win. Caden Smith, 32 points. Deshaun Hines with 23. Devin Dean with 15. I believe Clairton was actually trailing at the half. I believe 36-32. They went on to put up 48 in the second half and just started rolling. Clairton, they're back. This is your typical Clairton team. Last year was an injury-riddled season in Rashad Hatton's first year at the helm, and the Clairton grad, I feel like, has started to build something here. They're in that section with Sarah Catholic. Clairton might win this section.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We saw how good even we saw how close the other two teams are.
Yeah.
Last night, what was it 72-70?
72-70 between GCC and
beat Sarah Catholic last night. And Clairton, here's the big difference. And it's not even, he wasn't your leading scorer. He was third on that list. But the most important part of this Sarah Catholic team is Devin Dean.
Absolutely.
He is such a calming influence. And it's that leadership, that tenacity. He does everything right. Mm-hmm. And he is such a good player. And he got injured before football season last year, and now Devin Dean is back. Clairton is back, as you said, and this is going to be one of the most athletically fun teams to watch. Last year they had all the athleticism, but it was a lot of raw talent and a lot of, kind of uncertainty. But a lot of those younger players got to grow, and now when you add those veteran pieces back in, it is going to be a tough team to beat. And, without a question of a doubt, they're a playoff team this year. The question is it 1, 2, or 3 in the section? Because I think, honestly, those spots can be up for grabs. We already saw how close the other two were. Mm-hmm. And I think Clairton, I wouldn't be surprised, Jose, as you said, if they take the section.
Yeah, I think if I were to predict it right now, and in this, I think 2 and 3 could be swapped. I think Clairton wins the section, GCC second, Sarah third. And Sarah has every – They have the talent to compete for a section title or even for second place. But, I think Caden Smith is starting to realize just how good he is. I think that 32-point performance says it in itself. But Deshaun Hines, I think his emergence has been key. And, you look at a guy like Capone Jones. I mean, he's very capable of being in double figures every game too. I mean, there's a lot of balance there. And I think Rashad Hatton has done a phenomenal job. I think coming off of one, last year I feel like was kind of a facade. I mean, especially with all the injuries they had, it was just, it was kind of one of those, how the Pittsburgh Pirates love bridge years. I think maybe it was a bridge year.
But it was an actual bridge year, not like a 20-year bridge year?
Yes. It was a one year.
Bridge.
It was just one bridge. But, yeah, I mean, I think now is what we're seeing Clairton could have done last year had they been healthy, had they been, especially, I mean, it's a new coach. You kind of have to adjust as the season goes on. And I think they've really responded well to having a guy like Rashad Hatton who was in their shoes. He played for this program. He knows what it takes to be successul. And, he says, hey, if you want to do this, if you want to do what we did back in the day and be a successful program, these are the things that we have to do. And it seems like early on, I know it's still early. I know they're only, 6 games in, but it seems like or 5 games in. It seems like the Bears have bought in so far.
Yeah, and what I love, I mean, Coach Hatton, just the way he handles himself. He's one of the coaches. I mean, we have a great group of coaches in the Mon Valley, and this isn't a shot against them because I love all of our coaches. But, Coach Hatton just is that one guy. It's like, man, I would love to play for that guy. Just the way he coaches, his mannerisms, the way he acts on the bench. Like, I just, as a player, he looks like such a great coach, a great individual to play for. And, why I love the way you think about, you mentioned Deshaun Hines. Think about this section now. Cooley, no longer with Sarah Catholic. Where's their big? They start 5 guards.
Yeah.
You have Ward, Burke, Petty, Dombrowski, and DeMoss, all guards. Joey's your biggest guy on the floor. Dombrowski, they're about.
And he's
the same
not going
height.
to be.
No,
he's not going to settle into the post.
No one's going to go up against Deshaun Hines. Okay, well, on the other side of things, where is Brevin Williams? Oh yeah, he graduated. He's no longer there, and Brevin Williams was an absolute monster underneath. Well, you don't have to deal with Brevin Williams, so you have all the athletes to find a way to shut down Tyree Turner, who's fantastic.
Right.
He's a great scorer. He's been good for years, but where's the big underneath? Nick, we've got to see GCC a lot and how good Brevin was. But, I mean, without that size, they really don't have much to compete underneath with Hines.
You Hines and you have Caden Smith.
Yeah, and he's just
I mean, it's pretty phenomenal, the size that they have. And you look at some of the freshmen and sophomores that have been getting some playing time, and they got some playing time. Yeah, they got some playing time during the tournament. I think Woodling actually started.
Or was it Ruffin?
Oh, Ruffin
started.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have a lot of these young kids who are getting some good experience, and, it's just like Bell Vernon. As the season goes on, we say Lightfoot and Curdy Wade are going to play even more pivotal roles, whether it's getting a few starts here and there, coming off the bench and, providing sparks. You could say the same thing for some of these young kids on the Clairton roster.
Oh, absolutely. Clairton's definitely going to be, something to watch with it. But, can't not touch on the girls' side, of course, Iona Wade scoring 90 of her team's 99 to start.
I mean,
yeah, she's been great. I said this.
She just had a 30-point game, I think, the other night, too.
I looked at Jose. It's almost like she played for Chad this summer and said, shoot it every chance you get it.
Listen, I give Iona so much credit, and she is fully capable of being that player, the one that can just take over and, lead a team. And, she's done a phenomenal job. She's a great player. And I mean, just what else can you say? I mean, it's phenomenal. It's crazy to see what she has done here in the first 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, she is one of the most electric players we have on the girls' side of things. And on the other side of a team in that classification and section with Iona and Clairton, of course, the Sarah Catholic Eagles, and big shout out and congratulations to our good buddy Matt Bacco, 200th career win as a head coach. So big shout out to him. And, he's done a lot with just 8 girls on his roster this year, but they have a lot of talent on that team. You get Abby Jennison, you have Riley Alaba, and then, of course, you still have your returners in Caitlin Coley, Kate Clark, and I know I'm forgetting someone here.
Alaba, Clark, Jenness, Coley, and
Battles. Bree.
Battles.
How do we forget Bree?
I'm sorry, Bree. I've actually seen Sarah now 3 times in the first couple weeks of the season. I have probably talked to Matt Bacco and Bill Wiltz from Charleroi more in the last 3 weeks than I have all last season.
Jose got some new buddies.
But yeah, it's been fun to watch both of those teams. But yeah, to see Sarah, getting out to a 5-0 start, I mean, it all starts with defense. And Coach Backo will always say, that's the most important part of the floor because you're holding teams off the scoreboard, and also that's what creates your offense. And for Sarah, that's what's been doing it. I mean, they have forced a ton of turnovers. They allowed 11 points against Springdale the other night to give Backo his 200th win. 170 plus of those wins coming at South Fayette. He actually had a couple former players from South Fayette drive an hour to come see him for that game. So, I mean, I think that speaks volumes, too, just the type of coach he is. And he's always willing. He said, this isn't about me. This is the hard work. There's 200 individual groups of girls who put in the work to get victories, for me. He's like, they put in the work, so it's all about the players. But, this is 8 players, but all 8 are really dedicated and really good players. And that's it starts with that starting 5, but you see – a couple of girls got off the bench and had big games for them. Ashley German had
she was
11 points off the bench for Sarah, and she's come out really, really well to start the season, giving some depth, to that starting 5. I'm sure that maybe as the season goes on, she gets some starting opportunities here and there. So I think offensively they need to start, if they could put everything together. I think we talked about it a little bit. I talked with Coach Backo too. They haven't had a game where they've been able to put it all together with all 5. All 5 are capable of being in double figures every game, and they're a very unselfish team, so they don't care who scores and things like that. But, Bree Battles, I think, only had 4 points
I believe
the other
so,
night.
yeah.
But then she was also such a big factor on the board. She was a big factor on defense.
Her length is just unmatched.
She was really disruptive on the defensive end of the floor, and, even when she's not, scoring in bunches, she's still contributing in a big way. This is just a really talented team. Abby Jennis comes in as a freshman and I think fills the void left by the graduation of Chloe Pordash, who was such a key element the last couple years for Sarah. You still have a really talented group despite only having 8 players. And Coach Backo said, we're kind of an uncommon team with only having 8 players, but we want to do some uncommon things. And they did that Monday with what they did against Springdale.
And there's no more Neshannock. They're gone. They're not gone, but they're no longer in the same classification. So that's great for them. Abby Jennis, freshman, shooting 50% to start her career. From outside, that's incredible. But I think, everyone knows their role. No one's forcing things. And I thought that was such a big thing. We have Battles who knows she can be a hybrid in and out. Alabaugh is going to go to work in the paint. But Ashley German, again, we said how good she was off the bench. But she had many opportunities where she could have took a 3 and took 2 steps in and drained it and said, I'm not a 3-point shooter. Give me a couple inches closer, and I'm going to be able to put the ball in the basket. And, any coach is going to take a girl shooting 80% from 2-point range, moving in a few steps versus going 1 for 30 on 3. You're going to take those 2 points every single time. So, knowing your role, knowing your skill set, not trying to work outside of it is even a bigger thing you add when you have players like that coming off the bench saying, I know I'm not a 3-point shooter, but I can make that mid-range jumper a huge part of my game.
Yeah, and she's going to have such a big role as the season progresses just because with such a short, roster, she's going to have to go in there and give some of these starters some time, and I credit Matt Backo for the way that I know a lot of their games have been lopsided early on, so it's a little easier for him to get other girls playing time and get, some of his starters some rest. But that's going to be the key is the 8, player roster going to eventually catch up to Sarah Catholic, with the lack of depth that they do have. They have good depth with what they have, but just the lack of players, will that eventually kind of, creep up on them?
Yeah, and we saw, them able to handle it against Elizabeth Forward, and a very good higher classification team. But again, it's early in the season.
Right.
And that's the thing. You can maybe handle when you have to go that full tilt early on in the year, but once you get towards the end of the season, how are you going to have injuries? What are you going to have? And, something again, Sarah Catholic, this was a big plague for them last year. You got to make your free throws.
Yeah.
That's almost cost them in the playoffs multiple times last year, and they've been pretty rough from the Charities drive as well. But, you expect that in the early going. You start making your free throws, you win more basketball games.
Yeah, and like I said, I've seen Sarah Catholic a lot early this season. Team that I have not seen yet, and I will get the chance to see them tomorrow night, those McKeesport Tigers. Probably one of the favorites in 5A. Everybody back from last year's team that went to the state semifinals. And very excited to see what they can do against Woodland Hills tomorrow night. I'll be there with coverage for the Mon Valley Independent. But another win last night for McKeesport in their section opener against Latrobe. I believe 53-38 was the final score. Rachel Manfredo led the way. I believe Madison Miller was also in double figures for McKeesport. But they just have so much depth. I mean, even you look at a box score and there might be games where you don't see Brooke Evans, you don't see Aviana Menifee, you don't see some of these other girls that are key factors every single game that just do everything right. Not even just scoring, but, rebounding, playing defense. This is a team that I haven't seen quite yet, but I think they're bought into what they have to do to be one of the best teams in 5A.
I mean, it's just so impressive because you look at the team and there's just so many pieces, but they're so unselfish. And to have a team where you have your stars like Maddie Hertzler, like Rachel Manfredo, and then Avi Menifee, and then here's the biggest piece, and this is nothing against the other three. I think Rachel Manfredo is one of the best players in the WPIL on the girls' side of things, and I think Hertzler is one of the better all-around players on that McKeesport team. But if they do not have Brooke Evans, this team is not as successful.
She is the most underrated player, I think. I'm going to say at least in 5A because I really don't get to see much of 6A basketball. I don't get to, aside from our local teams and the lower classifications, I don't get to see anybody there. But in 5A, I mean, she has to be one of the more underrated players. I mean, she's just does everything that you ask of her and more.
She knows how to distribute to everybody. She knows how to make sure everybody's
and create
in
for
the
herself
act.
as well.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, she's a great shooter, great driver. She is one of the best all-around players in the WPIL. And that's as well. Like, I mean, she just knows basketball. The IQ's there. She knows what to do. And that when you have all that talent, Evans just seems like that player that can truly help make that a cohesive group. Because, how often do you see when you have so many stars, so many talented players that, it ends in an issue? Someone tries to play hero ball, and then all of a sudden it's out of sorts. When you have someone, in a sense, quarterbacking your power play, quarterbacking your offense, like Brooke Evans does, it just makes that team so much better.
Yeah. And before we move on to our next, topic or whatever we want to talk about, because we actually didn't really plan anything else after our high school coverage, but we got to mention the Fraser Commodores. The girls get another win last night against Springdale.
Go Doors.
Go Doors. Maddie Salisbury has made a huge impact in her first varsity season. 19 points, I think 13 rebounds last night, too. I think she
21 last night.
Did she have 21
yeah,
last
21.
night? Okay, 21
That's
points.
not bad.
21 points last night. Also had
13 rebounds.
13 rebounds for a double-double. I mean, she's made such a huge impact right away. Delaney Warnick, obviously you knew what she was going to bring. The Fraser Commodores, maybe they can
they're 4-3 right now.
Yeah,
they play
maybe
Mount
they
Pleasant on Thursday and then head back into section play after the break, playing Wash High.
Yeah, and Mount Pleasant, I think, is one of those teams where you have to just really be aware of Tiffany Zellmore, who can score in bunches. I think last night she had good. 31. 31 points last night against South Allegheny. Did Tiffany Zellmore had. So
shout out to the Lady Gladiators there for that big win, right?
Gladiators a huge win, 53-42 over Mount Pleasant in overtime. They've had a nice start to the season in their second year under Steve Mitteretter. And but yeah, I mean, some of these teams that maybe you kind of expected might either be like mid-pack or like miss out on the playoffs. Nice starts. I mean, that has to be encouraging, especially when if you win some games early on, the confidence starts to grow. And then you feel like, okay, maybe if we keep working at this, we can shock some people and make some things happen. I mean, I know that no one's probably expecting these teams the teams that we were talking about to win section titles, but maybe you can kind of creep into the playoffs, maybe sneak a win. Like, I mean,
that's what Fraser did last year.
Yeah, that's what happened last year.
Yeah, we've seen crazier things happen. I will, at this point in my career, I kind of realize, like, I know nothing. As much as I, am confident in my ability to do my job, and I'm confident in my knowledge of the games that we cover and the teams that we cover, the players, the coaches that we cover, in the grand scheme of things, we just know nothing.
I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on that. I think that's just like sports in general.
I think, sports are just so unpredictable.
From the pros to like high school, like it's just so unpredictable.
I mean, I look at my last place Fearless 5 finish, and
that's like every year. So
that is every year. It's become a thing, and I just realized maybe I'm just not as smart as I thought I was.
You're not that guy, pal.
I'm not that guy.
I told Brie I wasn't talking to her last night at the Bell Vernon game. She said hi to me. I said, nope, we're done. Said, nope, 14 in 1 week. Nope, I'm not talking to
I
you.
mean, she's gonna probably go for a three-peat next year. I mean,
Hey,
she
listen,
wins.
boys. She's not good at going for three-peats.
Hey, I mean, this might be the time that she actually pulls it off because mean,
Hey, they're not listening, so I know I'm okay saying that.
I'm gonna be like, hey,
I'm gonna
you guys
get
better
on.
watch
I'm gonna
that
get on
back.
Twitter
You guys
right
better
now.
watch the 39-minute mark of the
I'm gonna get on
episode
Twitter right
72. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see a lot of our teams getting out to good starts because we really haven't had too many that have gotten out to rough starts. I know the Ringgold boys basketball team, they're 0-6 to start. They only lost by 5 last night against Greensburg-Salem. You know, you look at the box score, Daryl Tolliver had 24, Lorenzo Glasser had 20. So it seems like maybe they're starting to figure some things out. I know they have Southmoreland, I believe, tomorrow. I don't know the status of Ty Keffer. I know he got hurt, and Southmoreland's lost to Mount Pleasant last week. Was that last week?
Yeah, last week. I was going to say, Southmoreland's still pretty tough.
Yeah, they're still a tough team. You know, so I don't know exactly kind of how Ringgold would match up, whether Keffer's in the lineup or out of the lineup. But, you know, those Rams still looking for that first win. But you got to be encouraged by what they saw last night, too.
Yeah.
So,
anything grinding your gears?
I don't know. I didn't really even think it through, to be honest.
Holiday season. Anything warm in your heart?
I try to be a little more positive. You know, I mean, there's just so many good things happening in the world during this time of year. I mean, I don't like to think about any of the negative stuff that's happening, which, you know, there's plenty of that. But
it is holiday season.
It's the holiday season. People are doing nice things for each other, which, you know, they should do
all year.
Every day.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Alex's phone, and I see the most hated person during Christmas time. Here, can I actually just show it to the camera? But in Christmas or in Santa Claus, the original Santa Claus, nobody likes this woman, right?
No.
Should I go up to the camera?
Yeah, go up to the camera.
Or wait, I could probably add a camera. We could just do it off the laptop.
Yeah.
There goes Jose.
Okay, there he goes.
Now, you can see it, Jose. She's better in the second one. But I mean, read what that says. I mean, it literally, here, get the headphones back on.
Yep. All right, so this says, and the reason why it's on your Twitter is because Andrew Sokol from Bell Vernon, former Bell Vernon baseball player, liked it. This is from Shooter McGavin on Twitter, by the way, not the official Shooter McGavin Twitter. I don't think there's a couple of them. I feel like, but
everyone there's a Shooter McGavin Twitter.
Underrated movie villain Laura Miller. 1, she allows Neil to tell her 8-year-old son that Santa isn't real.
Be better, Neil.
Be better, Neil. Pulls Charlie mid-soccer game and throws a tantrum on Santa Claus. I hated that.
Not cool.
He's literally playing a soccer game. Like, let him play.
Not even on the bench.
Yeah.
Like, he's out there in the midfield, and you're just taking a huge gaping hole for that team's team.
She gets full custody of Charlie and doesn't allow Santa to see his kid. I mean, who does that to Santa Claus?
Kid.
That really grinds my gears.
That, you know what? You know what really grinds my gears?
Laura Miller?
Laura and Neil Miller from Santa Claus. Just 1. I like them in 2 and 3. They're better because they actually believe, you know.
Because they realize,
right.
Santa's a good dude.
And then finally calls the cops on Santa on Christmas Eve.
I mean, come on.
Come on,
man.
Just be better, Laura. Anyways, that's what grinds my gears. Sorry, Alex, I stole your phone.
I love it.
I just saw her face as you were scrolling.
You got frustrated?
I gotta mention this. So yeah, there you go, Nick. That was my grind my.
I love it. I love it. Hey, but no, big shout out to all of our WPIL athletes and, of course, all the athletes across the country making it official, signing their national letters of intent today. You know, we know Rodney pretty well from his time in the MVI SBL. He's officially going to be a Mountaineer with West Virginia. Cruz Brookins committed to Pitt today. So big congratulations to all those local guys. Lamont Payne to Penn State from Chartiers Valley. So
Jensen signing with
Cal. So, yeah, So, I mean, it's fantastic. Great to see this happen today. So, again, congratulations to all these athletes and, you know, what they're going to do at the next level. And next year, you know, we'll be all over National Signing Day. We'll have the big one, number 1 player in the state out of Bell Vernon next year.
Yeah, we're excited to see where our local players that haven't committed yet decide to go to school. And also want to just wish everybody watching right now.
Yeah.
How many viewers we got right now?
We were up to 9. I think we're at 7.
All right, we're at like 7. All right, well, happy holidays to everybody who is tuning in. Thank you for your support of not just the Valley Sports Guys podcast. We're 72 episodes in. We got 28 to go until episode number 100. Don't ask us what we're going to do for episode number 100.
It's going to be big.
But it's going to be big.
It's going to be
I have
huge.
no idea what it is, but we're going to make it big. We're very excited to get to that mark.
We'll figure it out.
Eventually. We're not sure when we'll get to that mark because there are times where sometimes we just don't have a show because we just have things going on.
We're busy
on
guys.
Wednesdays. Yeah, sometimes things just come up, but we try to be consistent. We try to be here for you every Wednesday.
Unlike Laura let Charlie's dad.
Unlike
Laura didn't let Scott be consistent.
Yeah, she did not, and we try to be as consistent as we can. If things come up, just things that are out of our control, but we try to be here every Wednesday for you. But we appreciate all the support for the Valley Sports Guys podcast, for MVI Live, for the Mon Valley Independent. All the support means so much to us, and we couldn't have had the success that we have had and couldn't have done the things that we have done here in 2022 without everybody tuning in and supporting the paper and our endeavors here on MVI Live.
Oh, absolutely. And, you guys got to be more impressed. There's a table full of cookies my aunt made over there, and, we haven't got distracted by cookies at all today.
There might have been a time where I was staring over there for a couple minutes while you were talking.
My
I
aunt
apologize. If anybody was noticing that I wasn't looking at Alex and Nick, it was because I was looking over in this direction because they look very good.
I'm very excited. Yeah. My aunt makes some good cookies, so.
There's a big wrestling match in the Valley.
Oh,
There
that's
is a
right.
big wrestling match. Bell Vernon at Fraser. We will have some photos and I believe some coverage in tomorrow's MVI. I'm heading out to Thomas Jefferson to see the Jaguars take on Baldwin in a non-section matchup.
Go Jags.
So, be sure to follow along with me on Twitter, JNegron _MVI, I think is my Twitter handle.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that
For
it?
some spicy Jose stuff, follow his personal one.
Yeah, for when I post gifts. I think the last thing I tweeted was
We like to have a good time here.
Made a fool.
there's nothing. Yeah, everything is fine over there. So be sure to follow us on social media. Be sure to follow along with all of our updates on what we're going to be doing in the new year because we got some really exciting things coming up. Any parting words, guys?
Happy holidays.
Yeah, have a good one, guys. It's been fun.
Been a fun ride here
Been a
in
fun year.
2022.
Oh, wait. Yes, but before the new year, we'll see you tomorrow. You got to tune in. Join me, TJ Franklin Regional Penguin Cup Championship rematch. And then to get you in between Christmas and the New Year, I know you got some stuff to do, but we'll give you something better to do.
We're pretty busy next week.
Sit on your couch and watch some holiday hoops from Charleroi with us. So make sure you tune in for that as well next week.
And we'll have plenty of coverage of a lot of our holiday tournaments. I know, obviously, with the Charleroi tournament's always popular. South Allegheny's hosting a boys tournament. Actually, I think boys and girls tournaments at South Allegheny.
I believe
right,
so,
next
yes.
week. The Betsy Invitational at Elizabeth Forward for the girls. Actually, I think South Allegheny is playing in the Betsy, so I don't know if the girls are having a tournament at South Allegheny. I think it's just the boys at SA. But they are playing in the Betsy Invitational over at Elizabeth Forward. Just a few of the local tournaments that we have here in the Valley that we'll get coverage of next week. So, for 2022.
Go Doors, my last
Doors.
one of the year.
Yeah, last Go Doors of 2022, but we will see you in 2023. Thank you guys for tuning in here to episode number 72 of the Valley Sports Guys podcast. I'm Jose Negron. That's Alex Lyons. That's Nick Hicksonbaugh. We will see you in the new year, everyone.
Don't be Laura Miller at Christmas.
Don't.